Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of October and a little bit about September and what happened with that wrap up. And yeah, there's just got to be a lot. So buckle up. This one's probably going to be a little bit of a crazy ride because somehow the last month the reading really got out of hand. So let me go ahead and start with September. There was no wrap up. Maybe you noticed that. Maybe you noticed that in one of my escape the corn harvest maze videos, I snuck in graphics from September. What happened was I lost the footage for the September wrap-up video. And by the time I realized that, I needed to post a video. And so I had to focus on filming and posting a different video. Behind the scene things happened. And then about a week and a half later, I realized I hadn't lost the footage. I just mislabeled it, but we're not going back. So I read books in September. That's all that really matters. All right, so for October, I will get into my October graphic wrap-ups and how many books I read and the total number of pages and all that good stuff. But first, let me wrap up the readathon that I was participating in. Oh, by first wrapping up the other readathon that I was participating in that suddenly I have stopped mentioning, and that's the hardest reading challenge you will ever do. This is hosted by Stephanie at QWERTY, and yeah, that was the other thing that you guys missed out on by not getting a September wrap up, which is my update on the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. And finding out that basically I failed that challenge. So if you want information on the challenge, I will try and link Stephanie's announcement video for that so you can find out about how that worked. But in terms of the official rules, one of the things that you needed to do was every month read a new release. And silly me did not prioritize that in the month of September. And even though I had a new release, which was Lovely One by Ketanji Brown Jackson, I didn't get to it. And so I didn't read it that month. So I've technically failed the challenge. I was planning on still keeping track of things and doing those graphics just to see how I was doing, but that also somehow blew apart between September and October. So that challenge is over for me. Wah, wah. So, but it is really fun. It is something that, you can always challenge yourself to do on a monthly basis. You can fill in the graphics just to see where you are by next July, which is when the challenge ends. But for me, I just decided maybe that's just a sign that there's just way too much going on right now. And there was. In September, I moved into our new home. So that explains, I think, why everything got lost that month. Okay, now to move on to October. In October, I participated in TBR Harvest. I had reading sprints for that I hosted. I did my TBR game based on the TBR Harvest trick or treat prompts, which was really fun. And then throughout the month of October, I played Leandra's board game, Escape the Corn Maze. And so the one question remaining is, did I escape? Well, let me very quickly show you the game board and go over what happened as I wandered around in the corn maze. So my first card pull, because I used a deck of cards to tell me how many numbers or spaces to move, gave me an 8. And I moved to Spooky Book, for which I read The Wasp Factory. My second pull gave me a 6. For that, I ended up going over to New to Me Author and read Jennifer Government. And then my third pull gave me a 3, and I moved over to TBR Backlist and read Our Mutual Friend. And then because I had a trip, I also pulled a couple other book pulls after that. But let me just spoil it all for you and let you know, I never made it to those other 2 picks. I am still currently in the middle of reading Our Mutual Friend. I am stuck in the corn harvest, guys. I have made some good progress in this book, largely thanks to the audiobook, I have to admit. I am currently somewhere in book 4 in this, almost around page 700. This book is about just over 800 pages long if I don't include the notes at the end. So I'm maybe 100 pages away from the end. I tried. Even Halloween evening, I was listening to this book and it was just not going to happen. It didn't help that in the middle of the sprints I was on while I was listening to the book, mid-sentence, the library took my audiobook back. Yeah, that happened. Let's be honest, there's not a line of people waiting to get a hold of this book. So I did take it right back, but it took a couple of minutes as it processed it all. but there was no way I was finishing it that night anyway. So I also failed escaping the corn maze. I am just stuck in the corn maze forever, or at least until the farmer whose field I'm in decides to cut the crop down. This is going to be my carryover for the month of October, which is a very, very rare thing for me, particularly this year. I've been making a pretty good push to not have carryovers from month to month, not because I can't, but I just tended to not do so. But I will go into November still reading Our Mutual Friend. And I think I will wait to talk about that book until my next weekly wrap up video. Let's go and get into some graphics. That's like one of my favorite things now about the wrap up videos. So here is the graphic that I have for the month of October. Thank you, the Storygraph, who makes these. If you're wondering where you can find them, they have them under your stats. You can see I read a total of 4 books, and we'll talk about what those 4 books are because you only see 3 here. And I almost read 2,000 pages, which I'm like, oh, if I hadn't known I was that close, I would have read just 80 more pages on Halloween Day. But oh well, it is what it is. And I do have hours listed. Typically, I don't, because usually when I listen to audiobooks, I just count the pages in the book. But you will see I did read Muse of Nightmare. I did that completely on audiobook, and I don't own the book, so I have no idea how many pages that would be. So that is one that counted towards hours. I feel like having one of my highest 3 be a 3-star book like really does kind of explain how the month went. So let's talk about what books I actually read. I mentioned a couple of them: The Wasp Factory, Jennifer Government, The Evil Genius, you see there, and Muse of Nightmares. I have talked about hopefully all of these. I don't know that I gave thoughts on Muse of Nightmares at any point because I did finish that pretty late in the month. It was okay. I didn't think it was anywhere near as good as Strange the Dreamer, which I also thought was, just okay and maybe a bit overhyped, but was pretty good storytelling. Muse of Nightmares felt like it was somewhere between a really extended commercial break for every other book Lonnie Taylor might ever decide to write, or what should have been the second book in a much longer series of books. So a lot of that is why it got a 3. I thought Jennifer Government was brilliant, funny satire on capitalism gone extremely wrong and dystopian, but not in a like sad, creepy way. I mean, it's creepy in its own right, but it kept humor in it. The Evil Genius by Wookie Collins was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I really love a lot of his writings, which is not to say they're without flaws, but I have enjoyed what I have read of his. So I should mention, per usual, that that's not all that I read. That graphic just shows you all the books that I finished. I do have some books I am currently still in the middle of. One of them is Mysteries of Paris. In the month of October, we read book 9, I believe. Yeah, that sounds right. We read book 9 in the month of October, and Stormy and I, who I'm buddy reading it with, we both just thought it was an okay chapter. It did have plot ties in and kind of moved the story forward a little bit, but it took way too long to do that. The main purpose of that book really seemed to just be Eugene Sue's desire to talk about the social issues that there were in the prison system, which is true and existed, but it was just a lot of telling instead of showing. And the way he tried to incorporate the story just wasn't well done, in my opinion. And yeah, it was just not an enjoyable book in the story to read. So in November, we will be moving on to chapter 10, and I'm definitely looking more forward to that. And then finally, since I did at some point realize there was no way I was escaping that corn maze, and I wasn't really like super excited to read the next 2 books it picked, I basically entered complete rebellion at the end of October and just decided to start reading another book that I really wanted to read. And that book is Drood. I've been waiting to read this. I know I said that I really wanted to finish Our Mutual Friend, and I did. But then I decided, forget it. I'm not going to. I'm done. I just want to read this book, and I'll just read them simultaneously. And I'll just be okay with the fact that this book is going to completely spoil this book. And it did immediately. What proceeded to happen is there were probably like 2 or 3 pages in here where he went over some very specific plot points, some of which I had gotten to by that point, and quite a few that I hadn't. Some major spoilers in the book, which I think one of them I've already forgotten. I was relying on my short-term memory being crap and helping me out here. So far, it's working. I think the best way of summarizing what happened in October is to actually show you the October reading calendar that the Storygraph made. So here it is on your screen. You can see that the major part of the calendar shows you a picture of the book when I finished said book. If the date is blank, that means a day that I was not reading. This isn't totally accurate, but it's pretty close. So you will see there are lots of days where I got no reading done. Apparently on the 29th is when I read the most pages. I'm pretty sure that number there is wrong, and it's just I finally remembered to update one of my books. The lines on this calendar are obviously color coordinated to the books below, where you can see the full list of everything that I actually read, even if I didn't finish it. So the things on there that you can see I'm still in the middle of reading are The Mysteries of Paris, Ride the Wind, which I haven't picked up probably since October 1st. That sounds about right. Drood, you can see where I started sneaking that in towards the end of the month. And yeah, Our Mutual Friend, which I've picked up and put back down on and off all month long. But all in all, I do have to say that that calendar at least does represent the chaos of my reading for the month of October. So to say I'm glad that October is over is maybe an understatement as far as my reading goes. And I think I'm just going to end things here. My mind feels chaotic just trying to comprehend how reading went this month. All you need to know is that my TBR for November is up there. It does include books that I didn't finish in October, like The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. That was supposed to be read to escape the corn maze. I still need to read it because it's a book club pick. I now I'm going to be reading Drood, which wasn't part of my TBR, but I'm going to finish this book. And I am still determined to finish Our Mutual Friend. In theory, these will be the first two books that I finish. I think that's all I have to say about what's going on. Hopefully, November will be a less chaotic month and a little easier to talk about. But that's it for now. Let me know how your October reading went, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole. That's not going to work well either.